What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 9x9. It is Wednesday, March 2nd, and let's be honest, the world's been a bit of a crazy place in the past week, and we are going to be talking about how it affects the world of volleyball. Today, I am joined, as always, by the one, the only Mr. Rob St. Clair, calling in from Chicago, and we've got a bit of a banger of a show today. As we said, we don't need to jump around it. There's a war going on in Ukraine. First and foremost, our thoughts and our prayers and everything are going all out to those in the Ukraine who are going through this conflict. First and foremost, tonight we're not going to be talking about any of the politics of it. We're not going to be talking about anything, about the actual war itself, because you can go on TikTok or YouTube or CNN or whatever is your platform of choice to look that up. Tonight, we're going to talk about how it affects the sport of volleyball, how it affects the sport we love, and we're going to discuss that. And then, of course, we're also going to talk about a few of the actual volleyball things that have been happening including the Polish Cup that went on this weekend, the Italian Cup that's going to be happening this weekend, and a huge weekend going on in the VLA. So, Rob, let's kick it off. Obviously, it's been a bit of a week, for everyone in the world. And I guess let's start with at the beginning. And what was the first reactions, I guess, from the volleyball world after Russia declared war on the Ukraine?
Yep. So we're going to start from the beginning chronologically and work our way up till now. This has been a process over the last 4 or 5 days, I'd say. Before we do that, I want to express my same level of support for Ukraine. My bloodline, the most dominant percentage of my blood is Ukrainian. My mother's father was fluent. I grew up with a lot of Ukrainian being spoken around me. I never learned the language, but it's important to me for sure. So my distant extended family, I wish the best for them and everyone else there. And then the last thing I'll say before we start to jump into some statements here is that there's been a sentiment about some people have been saying, stop crossing sport with politics, like leave those two things separate. And my counter to that is, as soon as sport crosses international borders, as soon as you're playing like European or international competition where you're representing your country playing against other countries, or you're playing for a club and you're playing against clubs of other countries, once you do that, it is literally impossible for international and global politics and policy to not affect the sport in some way. Your club is governed by your National Volleyball Federation, which is beholden to your national government. And especially if you're on the national team, that relationship is even more direct. So there's no avoiding this. The domestic leagues operate, in their own little national bubbles, which is great, and those have mostly been unaffected by all this. But as soon as you cross borders, you can't help but start to make these connections. So that leads us into the first couple statements. So all of this was going on as of the 26th, which was Saturday, I believe. Let me make sure that date is correct, so we have the timeline on the same page. Yeah, so February 26th was last Saturday. The last show we did here was last Tuesday, the 22nd. And the first statement that we saw, volleyball related, there were two that came out at about the same time, one from the FIVB and the other from the CEV. The FIVB, the global governing body of the game, released the following statement on Saturday morning. It says FIVB removes VNL from Russia because Russia was set to host 1 week of competition for VNL this summer for national teams, but one for the men and one for the women. They were going to host for both, like one leg of both tournaments. It says FIVB removes VNL from Russia. Replacement host cities will be announced shortly. In response to the worsening situation in Ukraine, the FIVB today has informed the Russian Volleyball Federation that 2 rounds of the upcoming Volleyball Nations League to be held in Russia in June and July have been relocated with immediate effect. The FIVB will continue to closely follow the situation and will review other events due to be held in Russia, including the Men's World Championship scheduled for the second semester of 2022. The FIVB is listening to and in touch with its stakeholders, including national federations, and shares their grave concern for the people of Ukraine. So that statement came out from the FIVB on Saturday morning. At the same time, this statement came out from the CEV. This is the governing body of the game in Europe, the entity that's in charge of Champions League, and to which the Russian Volleyball Federation is a member. Because Russia, although it's gigantic, it exists in 2 continents. It plays sports under the European federations. It says CEB Board of Administration announces response to Russo-Ukrainian conflict. The CEV Board of Administration approved on Saturday, this was Saturday, February 26th, a number of measures in response to the latest developments of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict in order to protect the safety of all participants and stakeholders, as well as the integrity of all CEV competitions. As of today, Saturday, February 26th, no volleyball, beach volleyball, and snow volleyball events or competitions organized under the CEV umbrella will be taking place in Russia or Ukraine until further notice. Moreover, for the remainder of the 2022 European Cup season, clubs from Russia and Ukraine will be playing their respective home matches on neutral ground. Any other European events originally due to take place in Russia and Ukraine in the coming period will be moved to other countries. The CEV will continue to monitor the situation, and updates to the above-mentioned decisions will follow in due course. So those were the first statements that came out from the governing bodies, the big governing bodies that pertain to Russia. This was Saturday morning. That's the beginning of our timeline here.
Actually, there was a statement from the FIVB on the 25th, on Friday.
Oh, was there?
And at that point, the FIVB's original call was that they were going to continue with World Championships in Russia.
That was the original call. Yeah, I remember that.
So it says the FIVB is working in close collaboration with the Russian Volleyball Federation and Organizing Committee Volleyball 2022 in preparation for various volleyball and beach volleyball events set to be held in the country, which are progressing as planned. While the FIVB believes that sport should always remain separate from politics, we are closely monitoring the situation to ensure the safety and well-being of all participants at our events, which is our top priority. That, to me, is kind of where the story starts,
right? That was where the separation of sports and politics debate first came in, when they had that line in there on Friday.
But at this point, we'd already seen events like the Champions League football being taken away from Russia, and we were already in full swing of this war when the FIVB was already making that call that they were going to continue. At the time, they were pretty much the only sport governing body who had made that call, while every other one had made the call to pull that out. So I definitely think that it's important to recognize that. And we can discuss it later. But yeah, I definitely think we should chat about how the original call for World Championships and for other events was to actually keep it in play for 2022 in anything involved with Russia.
Yep, and then the whole situation changed a lot over the couple days following that. So after those FIVB and CEV statements on Saturday, the first national governing body to make a statement was Poland, and that was on Saturday afternoon. The gist of that was the Polish Volleyball Federation, which governs all the club teams of the Plus Liga and the Polish national team. They said, our teams, club and national teams, will not compete against teams from Russia. And that was the first and strongest national team statement at the time. We are not going to play against Russian teams in any competition. That immediately brought up questions about Champions League, for example, because Zaksa was set to play Dynamo Moscow in like a week from right now, with a week and a half at the time. So that prompted the questions immediately, like, okay, what's going to happen to the imminent, very, very soon happening CEV tournaments if the Polish Volleyball Federation says we are not going to play against Russian teams? Immediately following that, the French Volleyball Federation says we will not go to the World Championships if they're in Russia. That they're talking about their national team. They will not send their national team to the Men's World Championships if it was going to continue to be held in Russia. Slovenia made the same statement on Sunday the 27th. The Netherlands made the same statement on Monday the 28th. And USA Volleyball, although not officially until days later, Jamie Davis, their CEO, on Monday said the same thing in a Volleyball magazine article. He said, the USA will not send our men's national team to Russia if the World Championships continue to be held there. So that was the response of the governing bodies. The Polish one was the first and the strongest, because they're saying, not only will we not go to Poland, we won't play against, not only will we not go to Russia, we're not even going to play against Russian teams, no matter where those matches are scheduled to take place. So that was big, and that was definitely a domino in the volleyball equation. Now, at the same time, the other sports, not volleyball, but the rest of the sports governing bodies in Europe and globally for other sports, were all doing a bunch of things at the same time. So, Everett, you have a little more detail on that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, the FIVB was kind of almost on an island in terms of the response
initially,
to all this, because immediately we saw that the IOC was asking different sporting bodies to refrain from allowing Russia or Belarus to participate. We saw that FIFA and UEFA came together to suspend all Russian teams from competitions until further notice. We saw the double IHF do the same thing. We've seen FIBA, we've seen track and field kind of go down the list, and every single Russian team and federation has been banned from competition. And I mean, rightly so. It was at first that the FIVB, as we mentioned, decided to keep things going. On top of all of that, we had a lot of athletes responding and reacting to kind of what the initial calls for the FIVB. I think my favorite one has to be Irvin Ingapeth's on Twitter, which I think we have here. When the FIVB originally announced that they would be having the World Championships continued to have in Russia, reigning Olympic MVP Irvin Ingapeth says "Merci sans moi," which means, yeah, I'm not going to be playing without that. So that we saw all of our athletes come up quickly and with some pretty big statements. I think we've got a few other assets there.
Oh, yeah. So Ruben Schott, German outside hitter for the Berlin Recycling Volleys, really got him with this one, where like the FIVB has this circle of 11 goals to make volleyball the #1 family sport in the world, and Schott posted this graphic and highlighted number 9 there with a bunch of clown emojis, and it's too small on the screen for me to read what it says, but I remember the gist being like, have it be a safe family atmospheric sport, like whatever. And that was clearly not going to be remotely possible if they were going to continue to have world championships in Russia or any of that. And this all happened before any of the events were even pulled out of Russia. And then Schott again says, "Wake up, FIVB. I don't know in which world you guys live, but sport is used as a political tool in so many ways. But of course, it's just easier to say that sport should always remain separate from politics." So this was a response to that line in the FIVB's very first statement, saying that sports should always remain separate from politics. And Schott is a guy that just played in Russia 2 weeks ago and will be playing in Italy in Champions League the next couple of weeks, and has played national team for years. So he understands that once you cross international borders, you can't avoid this stuff. This one came from Perugia after their match on Saturday. They have Ole Plotnitsky on their team. He is Ukrainian, and there was a huge outpouring of support for him and a strong anti-war message from the club and from all the players. It's really been echoed throughout all of Italy and throughout most of the volleyball world player-wise. And then this last one from Yuri Glatter really got me. Oh, man.
One old schizophrenic has made up something and wants to make history, but at what cost? When even a lot of Russians are speaking against him and wants to reach the reason of this man. And I mean, he's not far from the truth. And of course, wow. Yuri Glider, a member of the Ukrainian national team. And you know what? He obviously has some strong thoughts on that.
As he should. And his team he plays for Jastrzębski Węgiel in Poland, another Champions League team. They're set to play Lubecki Vinova, and there's a chance that they could have played Russian teams later in the competition if it had gone down that way. So all of that over the last 3 or 4 or 5 days, starting on Friday, and now it is Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, March 2nd. Yesterday morning, Tuesday, March 1st, we got these statements. We got 2 from the FIVB, and we got 1 from the CEV. The first one is from the FIVB, and it relates to the World Championships, which were set to be played in Russia in like August and September of this year. And remember, they already had pulled VNL from Russia. It was set to be played June and July, but they hadn't, like 2 statements in, they still had not yet made a call about World Championships. Here they do. It says FIVB Volleyball Men's World Championship 2022 to be removed from Russia. New host nations will be announced at a later stage. Following Russia's military invasion of Ukraine, the FIVB remains gravely concerned by the escalating situation and for the safety of the people of Ukraine. The FIVB Board of Administration has come to the conclusion that it would be impossible to prepare and stage the World Championships in Russia due to the war in Ukraine. It has accordingly decided to remove from Russia the organization of the FIVB Volleyball Men's World Championship, scheduled to be held in August and September of this year. The Russian Volleyball Federation and the organizing committee Volleyball 2022 have been informed accordingly. The FIVB will seek an alternate host nation or nations to ensure that the global volleyball family, including the national federations, athletes, officials, and fans, all feel safe and proud to participate in a joyous and peaceful festival of sport. So that was the statement that came out on Tuesday, March 1st, relating only to the Men's World Championships that was supposed to be played later this year in Russia. Now, this statement was one that came out in very joint similarly with the CEV regarding participation of Russian and Belarusian teams and athletes. And it reads, the FIVB declares Russia and Belarus not eligible for international and continental competitions. The decision comes into force with immediate effect and until further notice. Following the initial decisions adopted by the FIVB to remove official events from Russia, the FIVB Board of Administration has confirmed that all Russian and Belarusian national teams, clubs, officials, and beach volleyball and snow volleyball individual athletes are not eligible to participate in all international and continental events until further notice. And they didn't word this very well, neither did the CEV, but it's important to make clear that the individual athletes piece only applies to beach and snow volleyball, like the more individual sort of sports. Belarusian and Russian athletes playing for clubs elsewhere in Europe are not affected by any of this. And we'll get to that in a minute. Last in the statement, the FIVB remains gravely concerned by the ongoing war in Ukraine and its horrific impact on the lives of so many, and stand in full solidarity with the volleyball community and people of Ukraine, and sincerely hopes a peaceful resolution can be found urgently. And the CEV made a very similar statement. I don't even know if I need to read this because it's basically just the same thing. You see it here on your screen. Russian and Belarusian national teams, athletes, clubs, officials not eligible to participate in European competitions, removing all events from Russia and Belarus that had already been done. And national reps and federation members of Russia and Belarus who sit on boards or committees for the CEV have been suspended from their roles and all that stuff. And at the end, it says, in these unprecedented circumstances, the European volleyball family hopes for the situation to improve so that volleyball can return to fulfill its role and mission of bringing people together in a spirit of fair play, friendship, and mutual respect. So all of that came out as of Tuesday, March 1st. That immediately eliminated Russian and Belarusian clubs, and really for CEV competition only applied to Russian clubs. It removed 2 teams from the Men's Champions League. It removed 1 team from CEV Cup Men. It removed 3 teams from Women's Champions League. And the FIVB's statement removes Russian and Belarusian national teams from VNL and from World Championships and any European league, any of that. Those teams will not be competing as of right now until further notice. And so now I think that's the situation. And before we get into exactly how it affects the competitions that we have on the calendar, Champions League most notably because it's coming up so soon, I think the last thing we kind of have to talk about is the one response to all this, Everett, has been, well, you shouldn't be punishing the athletes for this. The athletes on Russian club teams and on the Russian national team are not responsible for the actions of their dictator leader, and the teams and the athletes don't deserve to be punished for this. And I agree with that. The athletes don't deserve to be punished for this, but there is a line somewhere because the athletes play for the club. The club operates under the governing body of the sport in Russia. That's beholden to the Russian government, which is headed by a horrific dictator. Somewhere in that line, you have to sever things completely at this point. And there was really nothing else the world of sports could do other than get rid of all Russian and Belarusian teams until all this crap is over. It was absolutely the right move. I'm sad about it as a volleyball fan. I wanted these Russian teams that are really good and fun to watch to be able to play CEV. I wanted the Russian national team and Belarusian national teams to be able to play competitions, but
not to mention have host world championships,
right,
and all these things. Like, we know that,
right.
Let's be honest, they're one of the top volleyball loving nations in the world.
100%.
They
absolutely
go by
are.
it right, and they do it right. And I also think that it's important to note that every single reaction that we've seen from a Russian athlete has been against the war. Whether it's Ekaterina Gamova, who
that was a huge one
against it, or we have Oleg Stoyanovsky on the beach side of things. We have the tennis player who wrote "No War"
on the camera lens.
On the camera lens. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. At a certain point, like, the actions of the Russian government are affecting civilians elsewhere. So the Russian civilians need to be affected, and of course, no one's here saying that we need to go and bomb them, like they're doing to Ukraine.
Of course not.
Then that's never going to be the case. But yeah, I don't think that you should have those rights as a country to represent yourselves on the international stage, not even getting into the whole doping side of the ROC,
Oh my
as they're
God.
known on the Olympic side of things, right? So at this point, yeah, for anyone who's really calling for them to be like, you know what, let's be easy on the athletes. No, like it
No.
has nothing to do with them. Yeah, it sucks. But let's be honest, we know how much Putin loves sports. I'm sure he was gutted when Alex Ovechkin came out against him. And yeah, like you've got to, and I mean, we're seeing it in so many other places in business sanctions and in other things. So it would make complete sense that sports falls in line along with that.
Absolutely. And a couple things to point out off of that. That's a great point about the IOC, like the International Olympic Committee, and their extremely rocky terms with the Russian Olympic Committee, as they were called. And like we all saw the Olympics last summer where Russia wasn't able to compete as Russia. You already know that Putin waited to do this invasion until after the Winter Olympics so that his Russian winter athletes were allowed to compete in that event. All those athletes, whether they're personally guilty or personally have dirty blood or not, belong to an incredibly corrupt and found to be guilty governing body of Russian Olympic sport. And they were still somehow able to compete in 2 consecutive Olympics, which is unbelievable to me. But again, as soon as you start competing as a country or as a club that belongs to a national federation, as soon as you start doing that outside of your country's borders, this all comes into play immediately, and it hurts Putin to not be able to have his teams compete on international stages. The Russian Hockey Federation has been completely, like, the IAHF, the International Hockey Federation, has removed Russia and Belarus as members of their organization. Those national hockey teams will never again play an international event at all until all this is over and until they might be reinstated. That hits Russia really hard. And there are economic benefits that Russia gets from hosting world championships, from having their teams play Champions League. Like, let's say Dynamo Moscow goes out and wins Champions League. Let's say Zenit Kazan goes out and wins CEV Cup. Their clubs make money off of that. That money goes straight to the top. Like, you better believe that taking away the chance for Russian teams to compete and win money and market themselves and, promote the Russian brand on the world stage, that being taken away from Russia is a good thing. It is a good thing. It hurts the athletes, and that's a shame, especially like Gord Perrin. Gord Perrin, Canadian, is over there. Micah Christensen, American. Zhenya Grebennikov, France. Bartosz Bednar is in Poland. I'm sorry for those guys, and I'm hoping for their safety because they're in a really tough spot. As far as I know, they're still over there, and they're going to continue playing the Russian Super League because that has not been interrupted.
No, but there's no war going on in Russia.
It's safe in Russia right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly apparently the USAV and John Sproul had been in contact with Micah Christensen, and he said, yeah, no sweat, I'm safe. I'm here to play out my contract. I mean, let's be honest, they're volleyball athletes. It's not soccer or football or hockey who are making millions and millions. Like, Micah needs to finish out his contract because he needs to get paid, right? So no slight on them, but I mean, I think one thing to discuss in terms of the financials is the financials on the FIVB side of things and the CEV side of things, which is exactly why we saw those initial reactions by both of those governing bodies, right? Let's be honest. There's the reason, like, one of the big holdups in international volleyball is how much fees you have to pay to FIVB to host an event, right? Hosting a VNL or hosting, even more so World Championships is probably a money losing venture. And the majority of those payments are paying fees and, paying for the delegates and paying for all of these things on the FIVB side of things. Nothing to do with the marketing and the setting up of the event, but just so that the board of directors at the FIVB is happy. That's exactly why we saw that initial reaction
Right. They were
from
trying to
the
keep they
FIVB.
were trying to keep all their options open, absolutely,
Absolutely.
because
And
there's so much at stake for these events. And I don't blame them for doing that.
no,
They
you're telling me that these board of directors from the FIVB and CEV don't have a few dollars from Gazprom in their wallets,
yeah, seriously.
from all of this, right? So I think it's a huge hit to the FIVB and to the CEV, because let's be honest, now the FIVB is on the lookout for a new host for the World Championships. And I mean, I've heard some rumors about Poland. I've heard a few other rumors, but you bet your ass that if Poland's approaching the FIVB, they're being like, any of those fees, nah, we're coming in at the last
Wave
minute
them.
to save
Yep.
you guys, and you guys are going to be waiving every single fee. So the FIVB isn't going to be making the money off of it, because we know they're not making it on TV rights or anything like any legitimate would make it off, right? So this is going to hurt the FIVB and maybe to a lesser extent the CEV, but still the CEV much more than just kicking these teams out of competitions and not having them there.
Right. So that's a lot of info just now. By the way, if you have any questions about this in the chat before we get to more like volleyball scheduling and the updates on that, let us know in the YouTube chat live here. So VNL will go on this summer as planned. They will figure out 2 new locations, one men's, one women's, to host a leg of that tournament. Both the Russian men's and women's national teams are removed from that tournament. I assume that they will fill those spots to keep a 16-team field. As for the World Championships, I think that's too far down the road to predict, but it is worth talking about, Everett. Who would we pick right now, or who do we think the most logical or likely choices are for national teams to step up and fill the spots in the tournament left by the Russian national teams, men's and women's? And I'm not talking about who's going to host instead. I'm talking about who's going to play in the tournaments.
Well, I think there's 2 ways to look at this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Either you're going for the highest ranked team in the world standings, or you're going for the highest ranked CEV team. Because
a European team replacing
Russia is a European team. It would make sense maybe to replace them with a European team. So there's, on the men's side, there's 2. The first and foremost would be Cuba, coming in at 13th ranked overall, I believe. That would be the highest ranked team who isn't participating. And then the other one would be Turkey. So Turkey, I believe, is ranked 16th or 18th internationally. They won the Gold League last year in Europe and would have been the representative for Europe to go to the Challenger Cup, and in all likelihood would have played Cuba in the final. So I do think personally that I would give it to Turkey.
I would give it to Turkey as well. I don't think the Cuban Federation can afford to send their team to VNL this year. And like Ronnie said that in the Discord, and he said something similar when you had him on the podcast, that like the Cuban Federation is unbelievably strapped for cash. I don't think that they could afford to put a team into VNL this last minute without having it be planned. And I think that Turkey, this is Turkey men, by the way. Turkey women are already in VNL on the women's side. The Turkish men could make some noise in VNL. Just on court wise, I think they could be really good. I also think that it would not be impossible for Turkey to step in and host that remaining weekend of men's competition in VNL. That would be huge. They obviously have a great volleyball infrastructure in that country and a fan base. If they got their national team in there, they could that could be a symbiotic exchange with them and the FIVB, saying, "Hey, we'll fill this spot. Give our national team this spot, and we'll give you a site to host that weekend of VNL that you want." I would
pay all the fees.
Not to mention pay all the fees. I would kind of love to see that. I think that it would boost men's volleyball in Turkey in a great way, including put their national team on a big stage. So I would kind of like to see that, and I agree with you that that's the route that I expect them to go. Maybe not with the hosting, but I think Turkey's the most logical choice to join the field of teams. On the women's side, it's a little more clear because the highest ranked team in the world, not in VNL, is Bulgaria at 15th, and they are in Europe. So I think that would be a shoe-in replacement just to hop in VNL and play it. I think that would be a slam dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, that could be potentially a team that hosts. Now, when
because the men, I think the men are hosting one.
Yeah.
I think they're hosting it. I think it's the only.
They are hosting in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Yeah,
so they can just do back to back in Sofia, and it would make sense with the travel. On the men's side, I know that there's been a discussion. We also have a comment
Oh God.
In the chat, the comment of this chat is, Rob, you think there's a chance the U.S. men get sent to Shreveport, Bossier City, which we're not even going to address because we don't need Rob going off tonight on that one as well.
I had that rant already. We don't need to
But
do that again.
unfortunately, as you and I have talked before, you can only really go with the teams within that pool because they're like you can't change the pools from what they already were because that would just be would be bedlam, right?
Well, if they already have travel booked, it would make it extremely complicated.
Yeah.
But if not, like it's
But they would have to re-gig the entire tournament
they
because of
would.
it,
They
right?
would. And
And so
they might
unfortunately,
have
the U.S.
they might have to do that anyway because they're going to have to replace a team and seeding is going to be all mess. I have no idea what they're going to do here, but the fact of the matter is they need
But I mean
two new host cities and they need two new teams.
But that pool there on the men's side, I mean, you've got Poland, Slovenia, Serbia, Italy, Iran, Netherlands, and Bulgaria. So let's be honest, any of those teams could step up and host at any point. That's a strictly European pool minus Iran, but let's be honest, Iran is not that far from Europe. It's not like having to go, all the way to Asia. It's in between or all the way to the west over here. So probably, unfortunately, as much as I would love to see this, disaster and catastrophe of a situation bring volleyball to the U.S., I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh no, there's a 0% chance that the USA will step up and host any of these events for the FIVB. People have asked me if I think there's a chance that USA will host World Championships, and I had to try really hard not to laugh in their faces. That is a ridiculous statement. And if you've been watching the show, you understand. You've heard a little bit, especially when the VNL locations first came out. We talked about why the USA Volleyball organization is so embarrassing and would never, ever step up and do anything like that. And the proof of that is that they're putting the women in Shreveport, Bossier City, Louisiana. So that is the end of that discussion. So I'm really curious to see what they do for VNL. Like I think they're going to have to add two teams. They're going to one men's, one women's. They're going to have to add two new sites. Who knows if they're going to rearrange the competition because it's already pretty confusing as it is. And for World Championships, that they have a little bit more time. I expect it to go to Poland and or Italy. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a joint hosting situation there.
Yeah, no, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised either if we saw a joint hosting situation from a number of countries in Europe just to kind of lighten the load. Not one country has to take on all the costs and everyone can kind of push it around. And I don't know, maybe we can see some pretty cool venues from it.
Maybe we could.
I won't lie though, Rob. There was a point where and still, it's a little far away, but I'd still like to go to the World Championships potentially. And there was a point with me thinking about like, man, what would it be like to go cover an event in like an active war zone like that? Like, imagine in the insano world where the event continued in Russia. What would it be like to have an event in that kind of atmosphere? Like that, I think that would have been wild.
It would have been wild, and I think it's a good thing that we may never know.
Oh, I absolutely. Like, yeah. Hey, I'm relieved that they've decided to move it. There's definitely a part of me that wouldn't have wanted to go, but there's definitely a part of me that like, hey, that would have been a little wild. That would have been like Vice documentary type of stuff. Now, Rob, what do you think about obviously the exclusion of the teams, but do you think we could have brought in the other second place teams in, especially for Champions League? So do you think we could have given that other opportunity just to make sure that everyone gets to play?
Great segue, because I wanted to talk about Champions League next. Let's look at the women's first. So here's how all of this affects Champions League, because, well, I guess we'll talk about CEV Cup in a minute, because there's Zenit Kazan was still alive in that. But so take a look here at what would have been the quarterfinals, and actually still are the quarterfinals of Women's Champions League. So what the CEV chose to do is keep the competition structure exactly as it was and just straight up assign forfeits to any Russian team in the competition, men's and women's. So the drawing of lots had already happened. There were 3 Russian women's teams, 2 Russian men's teams in the final 8 of Champions League. So you can see right here for the women, that first matchup, which was an all-Russian matchup, straight up canceled, won't be played anymore. And therefore, Monza versus Conegliano, the all-Italian matchup, will be played as scheduled starting next week. And the winner of that will go straight to the finals. because whoever wins, their semifinal opponent would be Russian. That has been forfeit. So the winner of Monza Conegliano goes straight to the superfinals. On the other side of the bracket, Zhezhov and Vakifbank are playing their series as scheduled. And Fenerbahce would have played Lokomotiv Kaliningrad. That series has been forfeit by Kaliningrad. So the winner of Zhezhov and Vakifbank will play Fenerbahce in the semis.
We just got a very apropos hashtag Free Navarra in the chat.
And yes, let me go over the men's really quick before we talk about what actually should have been done here. So on the men's side, same deal. There were only 2 Russian teams. Zenit St. Petersburg forfeited to Perugia. So now Trentino and Berlin will be played as scheduled. The winner of that will play Perugia in the semis. Moscow was supposed to play Zaksa. Moscow forfeited. Zaksa advances. So Lube and JW will play as scheduled. The winner of that will advance to play Zaksa. So what I think happened here is they didn't have enough time to reformat the tournament as they could have or perhaps should have, because taking 8 teams are like not arbitrarily, because they had already drawn the lots. They just straight kick out the 3 Russian teams and play it as is a bad tournament format. It's bad. And it's what I think everybody agrees they should have done, or at least so on the men's side, you kick out the 2 Russian teams, you have 6 left. Okay, cool. Either redraw them or reformat it somehow to play like an old VNL style, like Final 6 with 2 pools of 3 and whatever. And then on the women's side, kick out the 3 Russian teams, maybe bring in some of the other second place teams, in particular Novara, who have really got to be the angriest team by far out of all of this, because they got screwed after Dynamo Moscow had to forfeit to Liberec and then was unforfeited, and then they lose to Moscow head-to-head, and they miss out on advancing, only for Moscow to just have to forfeit in the round of 8. Like, if I'm Novara, I would be pissed. And even if they wanted to make like complete fields of 8 on each side, they could have easily pulled second-place teams from all the remaining pools and pulled them up and said, hey, you're in the round of 8 now. We'll redraw the lots and play, or reformat it completely. But I think the reason why they didn't do that, 1, because it would actually be the right thing to do. That would be crazy. And 2, because more likely they didn't have time. I don't think they had time. They would have had to completely bend the entire world volleyball schedule for the next month in a way that I just don't think would have been possible to get done in like a week, because there are so many teams that have gotten COVID cancellations. The schedules domestically are insane. I don't think it would have been logistically possible to reformat Champions League on either side and fit it in schedule-wise with all the other teams' domestic schedules. So they kept it as is. The Russian teams forfeited. The teams that should have played Russian teams advanced straight up, and that is what it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have liked them to see them fill out the top 8 with those other second-place teams. I think maybe on the women's side, you have to go to one of the third-place teams. Maybe you just go to the best next one. But yes, I do also see how scheduling could prove to be an issue here, considering, for the CEV Cup, we literally had matches this week. And it was today. Today and yesterday, and it was the second leg of matches, right? So you had to do it, and then in Champions League we start next week, right? So
right, Tuesday.
Definitely frustrating. I mean, once again, we've talked about how it's going to be frustrating for all of those athletes, all of those Russian athletes and teams, but that's one of the lesser costs of war, let's say.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much bigger and more important things than the schedule of a volleyball tournament. I think we both agree this could have been done better, but with the time crunch that the CV was on for Champions League, whatever. We'll take what we can get. There will still be great matches played. It just won't be quite as many of them. So yeah, the quarterfinal matchups that are being played, there are now only 2 per side. Monza Conegliano, the All-Italian Battle Women's, is still going to be a banger. I still can't wait for that. Zhezhov versus Vakifbank will still be a beatdown. Nothing changes there. And then Trentino versus Berlin, I think, could still be really fun. Lube versus JW, still probably going to be a beatdown. But so now instead of 8 quarterfinal matchups combined, we only have 4. And then we'll have 3 semifinals total, 2 men's and 1 women's.
Honestly, I think one of the worst things of all of this is the fact that we're not going to be able to watch Zaksa beat down Dynamo Kazan or Lube beat down Dynamo Kazan, because you have some weird fantasy where you thought that they were going to beat both those teams. Maybe Zaksa, definitely not Lube. Like that's that to me is definitely a loss.
I got a message. I got a message from Eric Shoji, who apparently watches the show. So hey, Eric, thanks for watching the show. He's saying like
go.
He said, "Well, it doesn't look like we're going to get to play Dinamo Moscow, that matchup that you thought we were going to lose." And I laughed at him. I couldn't believe he brought that up. I'm like, well, yeah, I had to have a hot take. So fortunately for me,
Okay.
I'm now off the hook for that take since the matchup won't even be happening.
If that's the case, if Eric Shoji is actually watching the show, Eric, I'd love to extend an invite to come join us. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do it live because we do record it at an Eastern time zone, and it's currently like what 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. in Europe at the moment. But maybe we could hop on, do something pre-recorded and bring them on. I think that would be awesome.
That would be cool. So yeah, Eric Shoji and Zaxa will be a subject later on in this show. But speaking of CEV competition that we have to talk about, boom.
Let's jump into some real volleyball.
Yeah, CEV Cup. Now, but before we get to this matchup that happened today, which was a banger and was very fun to watch, this was a semifinal of CEV Cup. The second leg of a semifinal, because in the CEV Cup they play strictly home and aways. The other semifinal was Monza versus Zenit Kazan. Last Wednesday, a week ago today, Monza played Zenit Kazan in Italy. Kazan thumped them pretty handily in 4 sets. But then after all that went on this weekend, like we talked about, Zenit Kazan, who I actually congratulated on this very show 3 or 4 weeks ago. I gave them a round of applause for winning the CEV Cup. Now
I should clip that out.
Now that take has been invalidated as well, because we thought that once Modena lost the tours, we thought there was no way anyone was going to be able to touch Zenit Kazan. I still think that would be true. However, what can touch Zenit Kazan is international governing bodies, war. Yeah. So goodbye, Zenit Kazan, the winner. So Monza advances straight up by incredible luck on their part, because they would not have won that series. But as it is, they are the finalist of CEV Cup, and the other finalist is Tours from France. I would have never, ever predicted this.
And hey, ever. Rob, they got here by defeating 2 of the most storied clubs in European volleyball. Taking down
Modena twice.
Modena twice.
Skra twice. They beat Skra on the road in Poland last week in 5. And the atmosphere today in that match in France was as good of a crowd. It was probably the best crowd I've seen since COVID.
Oh, absolutely. It was fire. Like it had me like fired up. Like I
was into it.
We were talking about it, and man, what it was a match to watch. On top of all of this, Tools did this without Kevin Tilley, which I think is the biggest thing of all this. Graziano, 25 points. He went 24 for 37, 65% kill percentage to lead Tools in this one. They were absolutely huge in the middle with Nesiamento and then Tero Menko, the Ukrainian international.
Ukrainian. He had the flag on in celebration. It was amazing.
Absolutely. We saw the Tools coach wearing the Ukrainian flag on his chest as well. And they were rolling. They were from the baseline. They had 6 aces in this one. And one of them at the end of the first set, they had an ace to close out the set. They were all over it in blocking. They were just had a dynamic offense. Like Tools is a massively fun team to watch.
Fun.
Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but you said no one would be able to touch them. I think that Tools would have just given it like the good old college try. They would have gone in like had they qualified for, because you can't, like, their qualification into the final round here of the CEV Cup is 100% legitimate. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If they end up winning this thing, the only like blemish that they have on their thing is that the fact that Zenit Kazan wasn't in that final. But if they were, I would have loved to watch that match. I'm gonna love watching Tools versus Monza regardless, right? And especially if Monza can be the Monza that we know they can be, and is going
Monza,
off,
right.
not the bad Monza that we've seen kind of in and out the season. But man, I think the way this Tools team plays and the way they play at home in front of that crowd, because we saw, or apparently there was a similar type of crowd I've seen from like clips and photos from when they played Modena at home and won in the first round. So man, this Tools team is a lot of fun to watch, and watching them, you can tell why they're at the top of the LNV. You can tell why they've been the best team in France this year, because they just work well together. Ian Perry is just leading them defensively, takes control of that backcourt, and they just run with it.
They were awesome today, and I think that they're now my pick to win this tournament. I think they're going to beat Monza. I don't think there's any way Monza comes into France in that atmosphere and is able to handle that. Like that's crazy. I think Skra and Monza are similar in the terms of how their rosters are constructed, and their play styles are kind of similar actually. And Skra looked hopeless today against Tours. It was crazy. Like Gregorz Volmach, who we've roasted a lot. We roast a lot of Polish setters. It's what we like to do on this show. But he's been part of the reason why Skra's had a decent amount of success this year in the Plus League is because they just feed middle all the time. Mateusz Biniak is an MVP candidate, and he only has 12 attempts in 4 sets. Like, you've got to give that guy the ball more. He goes 10 for 12, obviously. Like, he was outstanding. You've got to give the middle the ball more. Alexander Atanasievich, 7 for 10. Oh, no, that's the wrong line. 9 for 24. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
And 6 errors on top of that.
Yikes.
Like, Dick Coy just looked pedestrian out there.
Yeah.
He was actually all right. 15 for 27 with only 1 error and 1 blocked ball, but still, like, his passing was just garbage. 29% positive, 8% excellence.
Horrible.
Like, that is brutal. There's no reason why he had the most targets. It's so weird to think that at the beginning of last season, everyone thought that Dick Coy was holding Trentino together, and here he is just imploding on Skra, like, not even like a little more than a calendar year later.
Amazing. Yeah, you love to see it. So very fun matchup there in the CEV Cup. Tours advances to play Monza in the finals. That's a home-and-home series, 1 match in each country. I'm not totally sure when that starts, but whenever it is, I'm excited to watch it.
Honestly, it's a bit of a downgrade from last year's CEV Cup final.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
anything
against Dinamo
anything
Kazan
is a downgrade from that. That series was unbelievable.
I mean, that one could have honestly been a Champions League final, and you told me, and I wouldn't have known otherwise, right? But I think this one's going to be a banger, especially the way Tools plays and at home. It's going to be a fun to watch.
Absolutely. So
do we actually get a commentator? Do we actually get a commentator for CEV Cup finals?
I don't believe so.
And if not, CEV high, I'll step in and do it.
Oh yeah,
I'll do it for half of Rob's rate.
I think my commentary schedule, by the way, I think I have both Trentino Berlin matches and maybe one of the Lube JW matches. So you'll be hearing me on Champions League. I agree. CEV Cup deserves a commentator. It's a shame that it doesn't have one. So, segue. Skra is a Polish team. Speaking of things that happened in Poland this weekend, Zucchetzergen Kozler wins the Polish Cup. They stomped on Jastrzębski Węgiel 3-0. It was very, very convincing. 25-20, 25-15, and 25-19 were the set scores. It was not particularly close. Marcin Janusz, the setter for Zaksa, was named the MVP of the tournament, and it cemented Zaksa's dominance of Poland since losing to JW in the Super Cup. As I was talking to Eric Shoji, I congratulated on the win. He's like, said, yeah, we played, thank you. We played unbelievably well that day. It was nice to get some revenge from the Super Cup. And Eric said, I haven't won anything. I haven't won any tournaments in a long time. So it felt really good. So that was cool. Zaksa Volleyball on full display. I watched the whole match. They were outstanding. I thought they were clearly the best team in Poland. However, they then,
that was until
today when one of the weirdest results of the whole year and all of volleyball happened. Zaksa playing a rescheduled match against Charny Radom, who I think is like the second to last team in the league, and they lose in 4. So Radom, after winning that match, is now tied for second to last in the league, but they were second to last in the league alone until beating Zaksa in 4 today. It was weird. So that they didn't play Janusz until the 4th set. Semeniuk did not have a good day. Slivka didn't play till the 4th set. They played a bunch of bench guys, and Zaksa took the first, but it just wasn't working for them. And then now all of a sudden, maybe it was a figurative and or literal hangover from the Polish Cup, but
that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
It's like, boys, how good was that party? Like, like, how good was that party? And is there any stories from it? Like that is my angle on this.
That's what I'll ask Eric. I'll see if
absolutely. Like maybe Shoji can help us out with a little bit of details, because man, that must have been a good party. But like, let's be honest, we've seen this from Zaksa before. Like last year after Champions League, what do? They turn around and lose the Polish Cup finals to JW, right?
Yeah,
so they
lose 2 straight matches.
They seem to have this thing where they just have these momentary lapses. Now, Thankfully, it's just a regular season game against Redom. It's not going to affect their first place standing. It's not going to affect them at all. It's not like losing it's not like losing the championship after winning Champions League, which just puts a weird mark on what was such an amazing season for Zox last year, because they're unquestionably the best team in Poland last year, and arguably the best team in Europe as well, by winning the Champions League and trying to go to lose it. And then we see it today against Redom.
Yeah, weird one, but I agree with you, Everett. This does not affect their standings, their place at the top of the standings at all. It was just kind of a head scratcher, and yeah, I bet there were some pretty awesome party moments for like 3 or 4 days after this photo that you see there, because that's just about my only explanation for this.
Yeah, it must have been like an Alexander Ovechkin-esque celebration.
Oh, that was legendary.
If anyone remembers it, the best was seeing, because Tom Wilson of the Capitals is dating Taylor Pischke, a Canadian beach volleyball player, and she would do these like little snaps of him from time to time, and they were fantastic. So, Zaxa, congratulations on the party. Get back to work.
Indeed. So moving on to Italy. So this is now my favorite portion of the show, where we can actually talk about volleyball that actually happened. I know it was a big week, but there were a couple things that happened in Italy. Match today where Trentino thumped Vibo Valencia, undoubted. I commentated this match. The only reason I want to bring it up is because of this No, it's because of this Sresko Lisanot stat line. Listen to this. 16 points. This is a 3-0 win, by the way. The sets weren't very close. 16 points, 9 for 9 attacking, 100% efficiency, 4 blocks, 3 aces, an MVP award, and 0 errors of any kind. No service errors, no attacking errors. He even passed the ball perfectly and ran and got a kill on the give and go. 3 aces, 4 blocks. Sresko Lisanot like completely dominated, and I had a blast watching it. So that was just a ridiculous stat line. But more importantly, now that we have 1 and sometimes 2 matches more played than last week, we want to update the race to not get relegated. And it is official, and it's probably been official for several weeks, but I didn't bother to do the math. Ravenna is getting relegated. This is a surprise to literally nobody, I believe, when you guys...
got two matches left, and they have 2 points.
They have 2 points. When you guys did the podcast with like you, Tommy, Monty, whoever it was, at the beginning of the season, and you guys said that this Ravenna roster might be the worst of all time in Superliga history. Sure enough, they're 0-20. They're 0-22. I would be shocked if they were to win one of their remaining 2 matches. So they're getting relegated officially. The question is, who is getting relegated to the A2 division along with them? And Vibo played today against a much better Trentino team. They lost. They failed to get any points on the board. The next match that might just decide it is Vibo versus Padova head-to-head. Those 2 teams play head-to-head on Sunday, March 13th. That's a week from this Sunday. Did you know that Padova has lost their last 5 matches in a row?
Dude, Padova started the season real strong.
Yikes.
Came out of the gate. They had this young roster that was flying high and looked like they were going to be, like, honestly, at the beginning of the season, I was looking at Padova to be a playoff team.
For sure.
Right? And that's what they looked like. And that's where they got most of their wins.
And that's the thing, is that it's not impossible for them to be a playoff team. They're only 3 points behind Verona, who's in 8th. Now, Verona has 1 less match played, but like all those teams right there from 8 through 12 that you can see there on the screen, 24, 24, 23, 22, and 21 points. Literally anybody can get that 8th spot and that 12th spot. And I think it's all going to come down to who has the easiest schedule coming in.
Now, I mean, Verona does have the advantage here. They have a game at hand. They've only played 21. They're in that 8th spot right there with 24 points, tied with Cisterna, but have that extra win. So that's this tiebreaker there. Obviously, wins comes first. But you're right. I do believe when we were breaking it down last week that Verona has the best schedule in my.
So Verona has Piacenza, who dropped a set to Ravenna today. They have Piacenza. They have Lube, which they're going to lose, and then they have Monza, which is winnable, because by that point in the year, teams like Milano in particular, by like the last couple matches, there's a chance that they have absolutely nothing to play for, because they aren't going to catch Modena, and I don't think Monza can mathematically catch them. So it's looking like Milano's locked into 5th. It's a race between Monza and Piacenza for 6th versus 7th. So those 2 teams might continue to like really play to win, but Verona has Piacenza, they have Lube, and they have Monza left. None of those are guaranteed in any direction. I expect them to lose to Lube, but they could easily beat Piacenza and Monza. Who knows? Let's
Who
see.
knows?
Yeah, who knows? Toronto in 10th right now. They have 2 matches left. Those are against Modena and Milano. So they're probably going to lose to Modena, but that very last match against Milano might be important because Milano might not have anything to play for at that point. Cisterna did themselves right. Cisterna did themselves a favor by I think they beat Modena in 5 the other day. That was weird. That came out of nowhere. I think they did.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
They at least took it to 5. Yeah, sure enough. Cisterna beats Modena in 5. They beat them 15-8 in the 5th. That was wild. That was on Saturday. So they did themselves a huge favor there. And Cisterna gets to play Ravenna again before they play Trentino. So it's looking like Cisterna could easily make the playoffs and they're definitely not going to get relegated. So in my opinion, it comes down to Vibo and Padova. I think they're the 2 most likely teams, and they play each other head to head on Sunday the 13th. After that, Padova plays Modena. That hurts. And Vibo plays Piacenza. That hurts as well. So it might if they were to both lose both of those matches, it might come down to Vibo versus Padova head to head to stay in the league.
Yeah, that would be a spicy one too.
Spicy.
And the reality is that if you look at the rosters on those teams, those are 2 like drastically different teams who with 2 very different outlooks. I mean, at the beginning of the season, people were calling for Vibo to be like one of the top teams, like a top 5 team. Like, can they break into the big 4? And I mean, there's been a lot that happened this year with Douglas leaving and Ishida getting injured. But the reality is that whoever made that team just doesn't deserve to be in volleyball.
Not
Let's
at
be
all.
honest.
Not at all.
It's almost like they had playing cards and just like picked them out of the pack, being like, hey, these guys look good together. Why not?
Especially after they got lucky with that exact same philosophy last year. They happened to catch fire with a great group of completely random players. They then shatter that completely, retry the same approach, and it hasn't worked at all. So if I had to pick who deserves to be relegated, it's probably Vibo from an organizational standpoint, but that has nothing to do with who actually will be. And I'm not talking about the players. The organization, I don't think, put that team in a position to succeed.
Absolutely not.
Padova kind of did. They had a huge COVID layoff, and they've been really bad since, and that's kind of why they're in this position, and they're extremely hot and cold. I've talked about them being volatile throughout the year. I think that their ceiling is higher. I think that they're going to get up for that Vibo game. I would pick them to win it head-to-head, but you really never know.
No, you definitely know. Also, shout out to Stephen Marr, 21 points this weekend in a big match.
I didn't even know that. Great.
Yeah. Hey, I had to get him in there at some point.
He looks great. I'm happy for him. He's having an awesome year, and I don't think people are talking about him enough. Him and Thomas Jeschke both are having similarly very good years.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's funny because they did play together. Did they play together that one year in Milano? I think they did. No. Wait.
No,
never mind.
Jeschke was in Verona the year before, and was there.
That you're right. But yeah, big points up from the big guy from Aurora. But yeah, man, the Superliga is going to be coming down to the wire here, and that you're right. March 13th, is that the last match of the season between?
No, it's the second to last. So okay. The big day is March 20th. That's a Sunday. There are 6 matches happening that day. None of them include Ravenna, which is great. So there's only one match after that, on Wednesday the 23rd. It's Lube versus Milano in a makeup game. That's really not going to affect anything for playoffs. So by the end of Sunday, March 20th, we'll know the 8 playoff teams, and we'll know that other relegation team. So yeah, those matches that day: Cisterna Trentino, Milano versus Toronto, which might not matter for Milano, Modena versus Padova, Perugia versus Lube, Verona versus Monza, and Vibo versus Piacenza. So that we'll preview that later, but that's a big day, the last day of the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, this weekend, not very many good matches, pretty much none at all, but Trentino versus Milano could be a preview of that first round matchup, the 4 versus the 5.
So the other thing in Italy we've got to talk about, there is one very good match happening this weekend. It's Modena versus Lube. Both teams, their teams are making up that game. We talked about it last week. We think that Osmani Wantarena is going to come back. We don't know in what capacity, but he has said that that's the date he's had on the calendar to suit up and play. Both those teams, the reason why both those teams are playing on that day is because both of them choked and were eliminated from the Copa Italia, which is happening this weekend. So the Copa Italia semifinals are this weekend. On one side, you've got Trentino against Milano on Saturday, and you've got Perugia against Piacenza on the other side. So those times, this is Saturday, March 5th, we're talking about 9:15 a.m. Eastern is Perugia versus Piacenza. 11:45 a.m. Eastern is Trentino versus Milano, and then 9 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, the two winners will play for the Coppa Italia. That will be very fun to watch. It is on volleyballworld.tv where you can watch it.
Are you commentating any of those?
I'm not. I have VLA in Chicago this weekend, like we'll talk about in a second. But
You're right.
I'm gonna have them on in the background as best I can because
what's your call for these matches? Who do you think is winning? Like, should we just go with Perugia because they're the obvious ones?
Yeah,
you know, like Trentino got lucky at the beginning of the season with the Supercoppa, and now with the Italian Cup, like it has to be Perugia.
The only reason that I wouldn't pick Perugia is if they had won the Super Cup earlier in the year, but because they didn't, because they got upset early, I think that this is a like full 100% serious, like take care of business Perugia moment. I think they're going to stomp on Piacenza, who's looked really shaky recently. I think we're going to get Perugia versus Trentino Chapter 6. And Perugia leads that series on the season 3 matches to 2. I expect Perugia to win it, and they could play in the playoffs. They probably will play in Champions League again, so that we're going to have a literal novel to write about the Perugia versus Trentino head-to-head matchup by the end of the year. But I don't see a world where Perugia doesn't win this tournament. I just don't.
No, I mean, maybe like if we do, then I would seriously start questioning Perugia's dominance this year, and if they have enough to be able to win the Champions League, because you can't. If you're supposed to be the best team in the world, you can't choke that many times.
It's true,
right? And it's especially like we're in March now.
Right.
This isn't September ball. This isn't October ball. This isn't, what did Guidetti say? Anything before January doesn't matter. It's not January anymore. It's March.
That's right. Well said. Yeah, it is a prove-it opportunity for Perugia. They are the favorites to win this tournament. They should win this tournament. And if they don't, there are going to be some serious question marks. I think that's a great point. But I think that they're going to be able to take care of business here.
Yep. And we'll be able to watch it all on volleyballworld.tv. Do we have anything else to get to before VLA?
No, I think VLA Chicago is it, and then we're about done with the show. It's been a long show.
Can we do the other announcement that we have before VLA?
You want to do it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it now.
Let's do it.
All right. We got a sponsor. We are now a sponsored show. Bet US has come in, and I've been chatting with them for a little while now, just kind of getting some things going. So let me pull up my notes here that I unfortunately closed earlier by accident. Basically, when you use there's two parts of this. When you use the code Volley125, you'll get a 125% sign up bonus when you sign up and deposit over $100 or more. So all the way up to $3,000, Bet US will match 125% of your initial deposit in for their sportsbook and sports betting. So originally I thought they had only the Italian league matches, but I did see some Turkish league matches up there today and some Polish league matches. So you can go on, basically more than double your money. Like any other betting site, you have to roll over enough, so you can't just put the money in, get the bonus of 125% and then pull it all out. Right. You have to make enough bets to be able to acquire it. But still, hey, that's pretty much free money. You can bet on some volleyball. You can bet on anything else. Bet US is the longest tenured sports book in the United States. It's been around since 1994, so they're legitimate. You know they're respected. And yeah, check it out. The code should be online by tomorrow, March 3rd. So if it's after that point, no worries. Until that time, you're going to go into the show notes, and there's going to be a Bet US Bitly account. It's bit.ly/volleyball source. If you take that link and sign up with that link, that will help us out. So if you guys are into betting on volleyball, if you're into betting sports, NFL, MLB, even though there won't be an MLB because they're a bunch of stooges and they're locking themselves out.
Stooges.
NBA, whatever it is, go do it on BetUS and get a 125% sign up bonus, which is massive. It's way more than I got on the first time I signed up for a betting site.
Yeah, it's such great news. I'm so excited about this. It's the sports world is starting to, like, sports governing bodies and sports people everywhere are starting to understand and embrace the fact that betting on sports is not going away, and it's an unbelievable business opportunity for so many people. People want to bet on sports. It's so engaging. It gives you so much more of a stake in watching all these games. So you can bet on volleyball on the BetUS platform. You can bet on whatever you want. It's awesome. The code's Volley125, VOLLEY 125. It'll be active starting tomorrow. We'll plaster a lot of this stuff in the Discord. We'll have some reads the next couple shows for these guys, but if in order for it to kick back and help out the Volleyball Source Network, you have to use that code in particular to get that 125% match. So make sure you do that. This is dope news. I love this news. It's great.
Yeah, and also follow the link down below. If you're watching it live, it should already be in the show notes right underneath or right above, I believe, our Discord account. So you can go sign up and get your 125% from BetUS, and then you can also come and join us in the Discord. And then if you're listening to it later, I'm going to add the link in here for you just to click on it and go check it out. So go get your bet on with BetUS. Maybe we can get the VLA on there one day.
That is a huge goal of the VLAs. It's and if BetUS guys, if you happen to be watching the show after this partnership, get in touch with me, because that's something that the VLA is looking to partner with someone with to be our one and only betting platform. And there's a lot of infrastructure to create around that, but that's a conversation that we desperately want to have.
You guys should reach out to the new owners of the AVP, because it's a betting company.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. I think like, hey, why not own the beach, own the betting? Like, I think volleyball betting should be a thing, especially for like VLA style. Imagine if a bunch of the dudes were betting on the matches as well. Man, it would get hype. It would get fun.
Yeah, well, you can't have dudes betting on their own matches, but it would.
No. Like crowd and spectators and stuff.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it would give people a reason to watch, and it would be a crossover opportunity outside of immediate volleyball fans. Like, people who love sports betting are just going to bet on whatever's on at the time. So it's a huge opportunity for volleyball to engage a bigger fan base, which is awesome. So huge shouts to BetUS. I don't see that link in the description right now, Everett. So if you want it, make sure you jump in the Discord, and we'll get you everything you need there.
Yeah, I'll just throw it into the chat right now, to be honest.
Yeah, perfect. So that VLA related segue leads into a very, very fun event that I will be at this weekend. The VLA has been crazy busy this year. This is the Volleyball League of America, a professional men's volleyball league in the States that's in its third year. It's really our first real year, since the last 2 years have been so dominated by COVID. But the largest tournament in league history is descending upon my hometown of Chicago, Illinois this weekend. 13 teams, a crazy volume of teams from literally all over the country. I think we've got 4 from the West Coast. We've got 2 at least from the 3 from the East Coast, a bunch from here in the Midwest. This is last year's VLA Cup, like the big one that we had at Loy's Place, was 11 teams. This is a 13-team tournament, and the second chapter of the VLA Cup series on the year, which so far has been an enormous success. So we're having 4 courts running, biggest we've ever done. Every match will be streamed live on the VLA YouTube channel. Every match. It's quite the undertaking, but we've got it all set up. We've got a very reliable internet network, which is the most important thing. And so head over to the Volleyball League of America YouTube channel. We're hoping to do an episode of Around the VLA tomorrow to preview the tournament more. So speaking of the VLA Cup series, this is an incredible promo video that we had made from the West Division Cup, which was in Southern California in late January.
Those Slunks jerseys are so nice. I mean, there's some nice jerseys out there, but I really like those Slunks jerseys. They're just looking good.
Yeah, the Slunkers are a suburban Chicago team, and they were they're very good at that tournament. They finished tied for 3rd. They took Ruckus to 5 twice, and so they'll be back in action this weekend too. They're dope. Yeah, this is what a
nice dish. Oh,
gorgeous.
Nice little transition there off
Got
the
that guy
dome.
right off the head. Get a nice stuff block here. Like it.
Ooh, those what's I'm gonna but like those slunkers. Oh, the black ones.
Oh
Ooh,
yeah.
oh,
You can
oh,
buy most of these jerseys, by the way.
oh.
Hit any of the individual teams that have an online store, or the VLA has an online store. Merch opportunities are definitely there, but this tournament this weekend in Chicago is going to be unbelievable. The likely finals matchup, in my opinion, is Icemen versus Ruckus, which Ruckus out of Tier 2 has won everything they've touched since last summer, and the Icemen are the two-time reigning champions of Tier 1.
Is that
They're
not an issue for you guys? The fact that Ruckus seems to
nope.
like just win everything and they just want to stay in tier 2?
That's totally cool. They can do that all they want. And some of their guys were complaining about the fact they were seeded third because we seed tier 1 teams ahead of tier 2 teams. It's just the way it is. So if they want to make the step up, which they were offered last year, they are welcome to do that at any time. Otherwise, they can just keep winning as a tier 2 team. We don't care. They're a great team. They bring unbelievable volleyball to the league in whatever division they want to play in. Cool with us. The product is ridiculously good. I want to roll that promo again because it's so cool. Yeah, like Icemen Ruckus will almost certainly be the finals in my opinion, unless Team Pineapple beats Ruckus in the semis, or unless the Icemen get upset. I doubt it. These matches are going to be incredible. This will be a better field top to bottom than the West Division Cup, which was sick. There are 8 or 9 teams that could contend to win this tournament. It's going to be unbelievable. So as if there wasn't already enough volleyball to watch this weekend with Copa Italia going on, you've got the VLA. So if you're in North America, the times are much friendlier for you. We'll be playing all day Saturday and a good half or 3/4 of the day on Sunday. So head over to the Volleyball League of America YouTube channel to watch every match. Only a couple matches will be streamed live to the public. The rest are behind a paywall of a whopping 99 cents. So if you can afford to give the idea of professional men's volleyball in the States, if you can afford 99 cents towards that cause, you can watch every match from all 4 courts. So that's what's going on this weekend. I am extremely excited about it. I'm also extremely excited that it's in my hometown. I can sleep in my own bed for one of these for once. That's going to be great.
Oh, that is awesome. 99 cents American or Canadian?
American.
Damn, that's a little steep for me. Our dollar's down there with the ruble right now.
Nothing's down actually that far.
No, nothing is down that far. All right. Is that everything? Have we hit everything?
Dude, I think we did it. The fact that this show was only an hour and 15 minutes with all that's gone on with all the Russia stuff this week is a miracle. So I think we deserve some credit for that. But yeah, that's a heck of a show. And next week, Tuesday, will be back at the normal Tuesday time. We'll have even more to talk about then with Champions League heating up.
Yeah. It'll be nice to just step away from all this drama and just get back to
on
volleyball.
Court. Yeah.
Yeah. And just get back to volleyball on court. Of course, our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers continue to go to those in Ukraine where we're going through this catastrophe. Also to all of the apparent Russian soldiers who had no idea that they were in a war and they just got planted in one by their crazy schizophrenic dictator. I think it'd be important to say that we look forward to having our Russian brothers and sisters because, the athletes and the average civilian is like us. We look forward to having them back in the volleyball fold. But right now it's just not possible.
Right.
And
completely agree.
We look forward to that. I, for one, I was really looking forward to potentially going to Russia to cover the World Championships. Canada was supposed to be playing in Ekaterinburg. Like previously to all of this, Russia for all it's worth, I think is probably a pretty wild place to check out. And it's frustrating that we're not past these things yet.
Yeah, so it's been a crazy couple days, but if you want the latest up-to-date news on everything, follow both of us on Instagram. Our Instagrams are on the screen there. I post any of this stuff when I find it, so does Everett. And the Discord is the best source probably in the entire internet. If you're a volleyball fan, you speak English, you care about all the different levels of the game, you must join that channel. It's been such a huge value add to my volleyball life. It's the best. The link's in the description. And if you're watching this, listening to this in the audio form after the fact, we're usually live on Tuesday evenings at 7:30 Eastern. So catch us live on the Volleyball Source YouTube channel.
Yep. I mean, hey, Eric Shoji listens to our show, and he's the king of volleyball YouTube. So the king watches us. So should you.
Word. It's about it, boys and girls. Enjoy the volleyball this weekend. Make sure if you want to go on BetUS to support us, use the code Volley125, and we will see you next Tuesday.
All right. Peace, guys. Have a good one.